Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's council meeting for Tuesday, the 15th of June, 2021. If we could all stand for the opening prayer and acknowledge the country. Thanks. Lord, we ask that you guide us in our decision-making, protect us and the community we serve from all that is evil, and strengthen our unity for the welfare of the city. Amen. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, culture, tradition, and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that contribute to our community. Thank you. A recording and webcasting of this meeting. This council meeting is being webcast and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being recorded and webcast. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this council meeting, that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. Albury City accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. An audio recording will be made for administrative purposes. Conflict of interest declarations received by the chair. I have one, and it's from myself, and the nature of the conflict is non-pecuniary, significant. Brief description is I'm a board member of the Murray River Tourism. The item is 13.1, Murray River Tourism funding, and the action is to leave the chamber. Mr. Zachnich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This advice to the council meeting relates to the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, section 10.4 requires a person submitting planning applications or submissions regarding a planning application to disclose any reportable political donation and or gifts to any local councillor or employee of council. Portable political donations include those of or above $1,000. The disclosure statement forms are available on the council's website or from the customer service centre and must be lodged in accordance with the Act. In dealing with development applications, councillors need to take into account specific planning matters contained in the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. Accordingly, the provisions of section 4.151 of that Act are set out in the council officer's report detailing planning issues to be considered. The Local Government Act 1993, section 375A requires that a division be called whenever a motion for a planning decision is put at a meeting of the council. Planning decision means a decision made in the exercise of a function of council under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, including a decision relating to a development application, environmental planning instrument, a development control plan or a development contribution plan, but not including the making of an order under Division 9.3 Part 9 of that Act. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Zachnich. CM4, apologies. We have none. We're all accounted for. CM5, there is no Merrill minute. CM6, thanks, Councillor. Action plans. Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the following action plans be received and noted. 1 action is complete for noting only. 2 actions awaiting response from external parties. 3 actions in progress, and 4 long-term issues more than 3 months.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to that at all?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey, did you have a question or? No. Okay, no further question or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Confirmation minutes of the previous meeting held on Monday, the 24th of May, 2021. Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the following recommendation as a motion that the minutes of the council meeting held on Monday, 24 May, 2021 at 6 p.m. be confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey, do you wish to speak to that at all?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There being no further question or debate, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Reports. There are no reports from community forums. Notice of motion funding of projects with adjoining councils. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council seeks to ensure financial contributions to partnership projects with neighbouring councils are equitable and in line and align with the benefits to the parties involved.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor King, did you wish to open debate?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, in the last 5 years I've been on council, I've noticed there's been a fairly significant disparity between contributions from neighbouring councils and what Albury City contributes. We have 3 neighbouring councils. I haven't really seen too much of Federation and Greater Hume, probably because their major cities are a long way away from us. What I have noticed, though, is that our neighbour at the city of Wodonga, of which we are two cities, one community, we have a number of joint ventures. And look, in the last 4 years, I suppose, we've had joint things that equally benefit each of us. But looking at the figures that have come up of recent times, it just seems to be, we seem to be paying a lot more than the city of Wodonga. And these are not numbers that are low. I just want to go through a couple of numbers here in regards to destination marketing. Our figure is around $120,000. Wodonga's is 35. Integrated cycling and transport plan, ours is 150. Wodonga is 75. Resident attraction campaigns, ours is 80. Wodonga is none. Establishing a cross-border Wi-Fi network, 125,000. It says that Wodonga's is completed. Blue Zone project, which there is a asterisk there that's Albury City focus, is $200,000. None from the city of Wodonga. Open data framework for policy and smart community services, Albury 150,000, none from Wodonga. Partner with tourism stakeholders to raise profile of the region and plan for future development. Ours is $48,235. Wodonga's is $17,244. Also note that Albury City Council has a deficit of around $17 million and that the city of Wodonga has a surplus of $8.9 million, which again doesn't really stack up to why we should be paying significantly more than the city of Wodonga. Now, if you use the formula of populations with contributions, these figures don't stack up either. Wodonga's population is getting up there to that of Albury's. And, we benefit from both of these joint initiatives, our two cities, one community. All right, just says that, one community. So I can't see why the city of Albury always has to be stumping up double, triple, quadruple, all of it, when our joint partner is not doing it. And I'm sure if councillors thought that the roles were reversed and we were putting this to another council, would they really expect that the money would be given like we give back to the city of Wodonga? So it's just something that with our COVID times, the fact that we're looking to save a few dollars here and there on things, that these type of things should be brought up, and I think we really need to focus on where a lot of our money goes.
Okay, question, Councillor Vanderman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to relevant member of staff. There was a lot of numbers quoted in that particular dissertation, just confirming the veracity of the numbers that he quoted in terms of the surplus for Wodonga and a supposed deficit for Albury City. Can those numbers be confirmed?
Mr. Zachnich, have you got any knowledge of that surplus for Wodonga?
Look, I don't. As a matter of information, I can take that on notice. Certainly, Albury's projected deficit is the projected end of year for this financial year, but due to the impacts of COVID, but that will be less than the figure quoted in the end of June at this stage, based on how the last quarter review is travelling. The range of other figures that were quoted by Councillor King are information that's been provided in a two cities, one community format in terms of joint projects, either to date or going forward as part of the forward strategic actions of the two councils under two cities, one community.
Okay, so as a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, can I request that this matter be deferred for some time, because I need to study these figures before I make a decision on whether to support this motion or not. None of the figures have been presented to us in any rationale from Councillor King or any emails from Councillor King, and he's just quoted these figures.
You want me to pass the email over to you, Councillor Vanderman, to read? That was headed.
What's the question of your point of order, Councillor King?
Well, he said we haven't received any of these documents. Well, I did.
Well, I think the substance of the point of order is whether or not people receive documentation. That report in relation to Cities One Community and that projected budget was in our papers some time ago in our meeting, at a council meeting, and was presented at the council meeting. So the councillors do have that document per se, but I think Councillor Vanderman is talking about emails as well and prior notice and knowledge of your position on this particular motion, Councillor King. So I think it's a little bit more than just one document. So Councillor Vanderman, you're proposing that it be deferred, or
I'm
alternative
proposing
motion?
that this motion be deferred until such time as I have a chance to study the figures that Councillor King has quoted. That information might well be available, but that was in the context of a Two Cities, One Community documentation, not in terms of the motion that Councillor King is trying to provide with us today. So I need to go through those numbers and work out why those numbers are what they are. I know for a fact that one of the numbers about, I think it was 80,000 with Wodonga Nil. I know that there's reasons for that, and I need to go through that so that I have some arguments to either support or to vote against this particular motion. And I think it only fair that all of that information is provided to us for us to make an informed decision on this particular motion.
So the specifics of your amendment or your proposed amendment is that this motion be deferred until further notice.
Until further notice on provision of the information that Councillor King has used in his opening statements.
So I have a seconder here wishing to second that amendment. I just need to see the amendment on the screen. There was further content to that particular item that until further information is provided.
Until information is provided that Councillor King used in his opening remarks to that debate.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second that motion, but I caution that this is something that I believe personally should be brought before a new council. I think this is a pretty serious thing to be considering now as this council comes to its last couple of months. And that's all I'd add to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderman, did you wish to pursue a debate on the amendment?
No, thanks. I think I've said everything I need to for a simple deferral, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other further speakers for or against the amendment? Councillor Stutchbury speaking against the amendment.
Yeah, I speak against the amendment because the amendment to me is a little bit open-ended. When will it be deferred until? I mean, it's nebulous.
Okay, so the matter be deferred until the 28th of June when further information is provided. No worries. Okay, we'll just add that to it. Councillor Stubbs, did you have any further to add?
No, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Any speakers for or against? Councillor King, you're speaking against the amendment?
Well, I'm speaking against it, but look, it's an email that it's got 2 cities, 1 community written on it. I'm pretty sure it was from the pre-meeting briefing session when I got it from the staff member and just said, "Can you send me the notes to it?" So I don't know whether you were there or not for the in regards to the initiatives that. Right. Yeah.
Point of order, Councillor Cameron.
And I'm only raised this point of order to try and be helpful. I think I feel that Councillor King may well be in agreement with Councillor Vanderven's proposed amendment. If he accepts it, the correct procedure would be, as I understand it, that then becomes the motion. There'd be no need for further debate on the amendment.
Yep. Is that the case, Councillor King? Are you comfortable with it to be deferred?
More than happy. I'm not making any of this stuff. It's well documented. So,
All right.
okay, Harris.
Okay, so we'll just abandon the amendment and make that the motion if you like, and you're happy to accept that for now, and happy to any further debate or questions in relation to this new motion? No? Okay, so the motion I'm putting to the matter be deferred until the 28th of June 2021 when information provided to Councillor King has been provided to all councillors. Okay, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. The second item is notice of motion Riverside Tourism Accommodation. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the council continues to investigate and facilitate opportunities for the establishment of Riverside Tourism Accommodation in Albury.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Stutchbury.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor King, do you wish to open debate? I have a question if you wish to wait for the
I
question.
can wait for the question.
Councillor Glacken, question.
Thank you. Through you to the most relevant member of staff, if I may. My understanding is that council has on a number of occasions progressed some inquiry into or investigation into suitable riverside tourism accommodation. And at the moment, we are indeed pursuing such an opportunity. So I wonder why we would need this motion if it's already part of what we're doing. Why would we have this motion?
Ms. Squire.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Glacken. It may well be a question for Councillor King, but certainly, we are already pursuing a range of opportunities and we'll continue to explore those. The dynamics of this marketplace change all the time. There's new innovations in different design that can be applied to areas, for example, that might be impacted by flooding. So yes, we are on a journey of continued exploration, but perhaps I'll let Councillor King speak to, I guess, his objective in putting forward the motion.
Thank you.
Another question, Councillor Vanderven.
Thanks through you, Mr. Mayor, to the most relevant member of staff. I just want to try and get your understanding of what this motion seeks to establish, and what is your understanding of Riverside Tourism Accommodation. What are the different offerings that we need to try and accommodate in this particular motion?
Ms. Squire, do you have to answer that question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question. Look, certainly council moving a motion along these lines really does reinforce its existing commitment and aspiration that's identified in the Albury-Wodonga Destination Management Plan around continuing to explore opportunities. Riverside accommodation can be anything from camping to RV parking to glamping to ecotourism. And as I mentioned in responding to the previous questions, there's innovations happening in this space all of the time. So certainly, I guess, which is why we're working through this process of continuing to explore the options. But it certainly doesn't need to be contained to one style of accommodation. And the motion as proposed certainly provides, you know, a real level of flexibility in terms of what we might explore, depending on what might be suitable on individual sites, which is the other thing. What works on one site may not work on another site.
Thank you. Follow up, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, no worries.
In terms of the funding that we've just had from the, I think it's the New South Wales government to complete this Riverside project, how do you see that fitting in with this particular motion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you're talking about the Riverside precinct, certainly it will complement any Riverside tourism accommodation, particularly if it's within walking distance of our Murray River experience and the Riverside precinct. So I certainly wouldn't see it conflicting with it in any way. It would be complementary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor King, do you wish to open debate?
Yes, Ms Squire was on the money there when she mentioned that it's one of our key cornerstones for our forward plans, that effectively we've lost 4 years of planning due to issues with our other venture. And as Councillor Doxey also pointed out, there's potentially a new council coming on board in September. So this initiative has been around for a long time. It is an initiative that a lot of the community that I speak to and in our surveys really want. It's a structural thing. We can build something. It's not just a policy. It's not just an idea. It's not just a concept. It's actually a real thing. It can complement a lot of our redundant land, or not our, but redundant land on the Murray River that could showcase our fantastic city. And it also is aligned with current trends that we should be getting on board with, and that is recreational tourism. People can't go overseas, or they can, but it's very difficult to get home. Caravan sales sell more than cars. People are looking for somewhere to go to spend their money, and we need to provide that spot and that experience that'll make Albury the go-to place. So it's predominantly to keep it in the front, on the front of our agenda, front of mind, and to work hard to make this happen, given the setbacks that we've recently experienced.
Thank you, Councillor King. I have a question before I speak against. Councillor Conn, question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the relevant member of staff, please. Look, I'm inclined to support the motion, given that it's only asking for investigation at this stage. But I have a couple of qualms, given that it's specifying Riverside, about flooding risk, insurability of any of those sites and the environmental risk. And I just wanted to confirm with staff that all of those constraints would be considered, as well as the opportunities.
Ms Squire.
Thanks for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. They're going to be key considerations. And, you know, it's a phased approach in undertaking these investigations. You start at the highest level and, you know, you may from time to time, there might be sites that are eliminated early in the process simply because they don't have the capacity to support Riverside tourism accommodation. But yes, absolutely, there'll be considerations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Speaker against, Councillor Vanderman.
He has opened debate, hasn't he? Yes. Look, I'm just wondering why we need a motion of this nature to tell the council what to do that they're already doing now. I just don't get why we need this particular motion. With the answers to the questions that I asked, and even Councillor King's opening remarks said that Ms Squire was right on the money about a particular issue. So what we're doing is we're telling council to do their job, and I don't think we need that motion.
Thank you. Speaker 4, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor King and I don't always agree on every subject, although we often do. But this is something that I do agree with him on. And I would say to councillors to consider that not to underestimate the degree of enthusiasm for this idea amongst our own community. Like all of us, we often get things routinely raised with us, matters of interest from the public. And this proposal, whatever final form it might take, is one of the ones that comes up consistently when people speak to me about things that council should be doing. We often reflect, and it's been discussed many times, about the Riverside precinct and facilities down in Echuca and towns like that on the Murray, who seem to survive the deadly threat of flood notwithstanding. And I think it is something that it bears reinforcing publicly. It bears reinforcing by way of this notice of motion, and it bears publicly reflecting on and coming back to from time to time to restate our commitment as an organisation to this concept. And Councillor King is to be commended for his motion. It's timely, it's relevant, and it serves a good purpose, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. No speakers against. Speaker for Councillor Stutchbury.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cameron, for saying everything I was just about to say. But just in regards to insurance, I did see in the news earlier in the week that when Traralgon Creek flooded, the local caravan park, they just hooked up all the caravans and drove them off up to higher ground. Yeah, it's amazing to think that you can do that with a caravan, just hook it up to a car and drive it away from the flood. Who would have thought? Yeah, I commend the motion to you all as well. Thank you, Councillor King.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. Their speaker against, Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. I find myself in a difficult situation because I do not agree with us having this motion here tonight because it is a part of what council has been aiming to achieve for a number of years. Investigations have been ongoing and work has been continuing, not just one site, but a number of sites. And so I find it difficult to determine whether I will vote against or for this motion tonight, because it is already something that is being undertaken by council. It already has council support. It was a decision made a number of years ago, many years ago. The reason I think I, however, need to vote for it is because it's already something we're doing. And if I was to vote against this motion, I would be voting against something that we have already been working towards for a number of years. And so I find myself in a real quandary. Do I support what is really showmanship, trying to bring oneself out in the media by putting up something that's already part of the program and process of council? It's a bit of a soapbox opportunity, perhaps, or should I simply go with the flow and agree, yes, we'll vote for it because we're already doing it anyway? I do find it an interesting dilemma. So I took the opportunity to speak against the motion simply because I wanted to highlight that I think it is a bit of soapboxing being done here tonight, because it's already part of our program. It's already part of the 2030 plan. And therefore, whilst I've spoken against it, I do believe that I will need to vote for it because it's part of what we had agreed a number of years ago. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. There are no further speakers for or against. Just from myself, we have had many discussions about a destination holiday park, but when you review the CEO's note and the intent of the motion is to investigate and facilitate, it's about the options that may be out there in the market and available to us post-COVID. It's about looking at the current environment and understanding how the ecology and tourism and recreation can mesh together and how we can achieve those objectives more flexibly. And I look at the note and I noticed that Wonga wetlands is mentioned in the note. I noticed there's other areas on the riverside also mentioned in the note. I think, again, it's the flexibility and the refreshing of this particular motion that comes to me as an opportunity. Yes, we have previously supported a destination holiday park. However, this is a whole range of opportunities and options that may be available, may not be available. And the MacArthurs are investigating 3 or 4 sites. Who's to say that other privateers or other stakeholders don't come forward and say, here is a fresh opportunity to consider glamping or ecotourism opportunities. So we've spent all that money doing the WARII trial, which hopefully very soon the Wonga wetlands stage will be open. More importantly, though, we need to be able to activate those precincts and do it in a very, very flexible and aggressive way. And I think, again, it's a way of evaluating to that. With nearly over $8 million being spent on the Murray River experience now, this is a way of bringing those elements together. I think professionally and as a group, we've followed this course for the last 5 years, and I commend you all for that. But I still think the harm of this motion is negligible, given that it more so confirms that we need to consider a whole range of options. Councillor King, did you wish to close debate?
Yeah, thank you for your kind words, Councillor Cameron, and your unkind words, Councillor Clackham. Look, this is for the greater community. It's not about showmanship. It's getting something done that we committed to a long time ago. It shows that we as a council, or most of us, are committed to doing what we say we're going to do. And as I said, that's putting in the front of minds of councillors and the community that we're still ploughing ahead. We have had a setback, and I was unaware of other alternatives going on in the background other than our prime focus site up to 5 months ago. So I apologise if I haven't been kept up with all these other things going on in the background. So this is for the community. It's for the city. It's of economic benefit. And I just want to make sure that it's not just squirreled away and forgotten about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. On that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We are up to reports of minutes of committees and working parties. There are no presentations of deputations. The minutes of the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 19th of May. Councillor Glackin.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as a motion that council receives, notes and accepts the minutes recommendations of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on Wednesday, 19 May 2021.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Glackin, did you wish to speak to that at all?
Thank you. No.
Okay. No further questions or debate. Councillor Thurley, your light's on. Did you wish to speak to it?
I just wanted to note that a long-serving member of the committee has left. He's served his term, Chris Davies, and we've appointed a new member to that committee, I think with excellent skills, and will add significantly to the capacity of the ARIC.
Thank you. On that note, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. CM 11.2, in the minutes of the Sports Albury Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 19th of May. Councillor Vandervan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the recommendation of the motion. The council receives, notes and accepts the minutes recommendations of the Sports Albury Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 19th of May 2021.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervan, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. We have no documents for sealing. 13.1 Officers' Reports for Consideration. Development Application 10.2021.38260.1. Thank you, Councillor Glackin.
Thank you. I'd like to, through you, Mr. Mayor, move the recommendation as a motion that Council A receives the contents of this report and B grants consent to development application 10.2021.38260.1 for a liquor shop with drive-through facility on land described as lot 503 in DP 1268791 and situated at 29 Diamond Drive, Laguna, subject to the conditions contained in the drafted determination included at attachment 4 to this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Glackin. Happy for me to take the question?
Thank you. Yes.
Councillor Vandervan, question?
A very simple question, Mr. Mayor. Do we need another liquor outlet?
Yeah.
Oh, what are you going to?
A rhetorical question.
Oh, okay.
I get that one. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Glackin, did you wish to open debate?
Thank you. Contrary to one of the letters to the editor in the paper today, this is, well, it was alluded in the letter to the editor that it was council who was putting this outlet there. Just to confirm that it's not council putting this outlet there. Somebody owns this land, they're putting a development application and they want to put a liquor shop with a drive-through facility there. Having been out to that location a number of times and more recently refamiliarized myself with that location, I think it's an appropriate location. It's off in a side street that is will be ultimately a through road. And I think the location is an appropriate location. It's part of everyday life for us in Australia, having bottle shops and having access to bottle shops. I think, or my opinion is that the people of Thurgoona will be very happy to have this. I remember when there were some people, a couple of people saying that they didn't think Thurgoona needed a petrol station, but the very vast majority of Thurgoona thought they did need a petrol station. I am aware that the development application, when it was put out for notification, the interest, there was no negative interest. And so I believe that we as council should be supporting this developer in the pursuit of putting a retail facility in that location. Thank you.
Thank you. The speaker against, but another question, Councillor Vanderman, is this a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the most relevant member of staff. I noticed in the, I just have to go back to my council meeting agenda, that it mentions some police interaction with this development consent in terms of CCTV and something else, but I don't notice any of those conditions in the draft consent unless it's an attachment which is not attached. Yeah.
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question for you, Mr. Mayor. So I suspect you'll be referring to the referral from the New South Wales Police.
Yes.
Because of the nature of the business. Then we did refer it to New South Wales Police. Our recommendations have been passed on to, or should council grant consent, they will be passed on to the applicant. As there are any recommendations, they weren't incorporated in the consent, but quite easily, if council wished to incorporate them and make them part of the consent, then that could quite easily be accommodated by, pardon me, by the addition of a condition where we'd take the referral commentary off New South Wales Police referral and add it as a condition of consent.
So, but the document says on page 37 of the, I think it's, yeah, page 37 of our electronics, that police advice regarding crime prevention and the use of CCTV will be attached to the draft consent. But it's not attached to the draft consent, so I haven't been able to read that.
Okay, thank you for the question for you, Mr. Mayor. So that was referring that we would, as I indicated, we would provide a copy of the police comments to the applicant should council grant consent. Obviously, if council doesn't grant consent, then the police comments don't form part of that development consent. In regards to it not being formally attached to the actual report, which I believe may be where you're coming from, we don't normally attach the formal referrals, whether it's from the Royal Fire Service or the like, to the development consent reports to council.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor, but isn't the advice from police different to what you would normally get as a referral from, let's say, the RFS? I mean, they'll either say yes or no, but the police advice is something different, and perhaps we should be advised what that police advice is in this particular case.
Thank you.
Well, no, it's not in the draft consent.
Mr. Christie.
Yep. Thank you for the question, and for you, Mr. Mayor. The summation of the police advice was they considered a low crime risk, and they made some suggestions around how there could be some improvements related to the operational matters. That's what wasn't attached, as opposed to advice from the RFS, which actually is meant to form part of a consent because they're seeking an actual formal approval from the RFS.
Okay, speaker again is Councillor Con.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking against this development, not because it's a liquor store, but because it's a drive-through. And I don't think it's consistent with the major neighbourhood centre that we promised the Thurgoona community as part of the Thurgoona-Willinga precinct structure plan. This is the third DA in a similar area that I've opposed. So I'm being consistent with my previous position. The Thurgoona-Willinga precinct structure plan clearly shared drawings with the community of a single shopping centre on this site with a courtyard or a square, a public open space for the community. And when we approved this subdivision, we insisted on a shared car park. We had to negotiate with the developer to have centralised parking so that each separate development wouldn't need its own car park. So that this was an attempt to salvage this commercial area as being community friendly, pedestrian friendly, and not what Councillor Glacken called a through road. I think it's completely inconsistent with what we were trying to achieve with the Thurgoona-Willinga precinct structure plans major neighbourhood centre to have a drive-through, because obviously that's a large number of cars coming in and out off that road. It really is going to detract from the amenity and from pedestrian accessibility to those shops, and I don't think it's the right location for a drive-through facility. Thanks.
Thank you. Speaker 4, Councillor Cameron.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's lovely to be able to speak on a subject with which one is intimately acquainted. Thurgoona is of course our growth area. It's becoming, it is, to my knowledge, it's our biggest growth area, and it is under supplied with facilities and with transport infrastructure, sadly, which we are taking steps to remedy, I hope. But the sort of amenity that I don't think it is appreciated by many people, the amenity that a drive-through bottle shop offers working people, particularly working men who have worked long outdoors in physical conditions in summer, who may have worked 10 or 12-hour shifts, and to tell such people that they have to forego the amenity that everybody else in the city has available to get a nice cold 6-pack of Melbourne Bitter on the way home after steel fixing or digging ditches or operating plant machinery or other heavy work. To tell these people that they're somehow lesser beings, and because of amenity or because of some highfalutin ideas that are held by certain people within this council, that it doesn't match the amenity or the appearance of an area, that those people have to forego the simple pleasures that the rest of us get to enjoy, is simply just classist in my view, and is just appalling, So I think that the working people and the working families of Thurgoona have the same rights as everybody else, and they should have access to the same amenity and the simple pleasures of being easy access to a moderate amount of alcohol on the way home as everybody else in the city. And I'll certainly be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Doxey, another speaker 4. Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Mr. Christie. My recollection is there were going to be 5 allotments along that Diamond Drive side. I think 1 we've already approved, which is the veterinary hospital. Now we've got the bottle shop. Do we know what the other 3 are likely to be? And if this gets knocked back because it doesn't conform with someone's ideas, the other 3 are in jeopardy also. Can you help me out, please, in that decision?
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to other applications, council's also approved a childcare centre a few months ago on one of the blocks, I believe pretty much on the corner block where Diamond Drive hits Thurgoona Drive, or might be one just in. At this stage, we don't have any formal applications in. We've obviously had expressions of pre-lodgement where people have come to us and sought our opinion around medical centres and a variety of permissible uses. But the only other formal applications we had in 2013, there's a car wash that's approved where Diamond Drive hits Tabletop Road, opposite where the service station is. There was takeaway food and drink premises approved as part of the service station development, and that development consent is still active and could be built at any stage, subject to compliance with the conditions of consent. And then we indicated we've had the veterinary clinic and the childcare centre, and then this is the 3rd formal application.
Just to follow up on Mr. Mayor, just to answer Councillor Van der Van's question before, do we need another bottle shop? I don't drink alcohol, but I will support the application. Thank you.
And Councillor King, are you speaking for the motion?
Speaking for the motion, I think the the fact that it's drive-through is irrelevant, whether it's a liquor shop or whether it's a drive-through dry cleaners. And the arguments to say that you know, cars going out into the street, it's just because it's a liquor shop, it's buying a product and it's driving your car in, getting it and moving on. So I'm supporting it.
Thank you. No further speakers for or against. Councillor Blacken, did you wish to close debate?
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate Councillor Con's concerns and the points that she's raised. However, I don't agree with them entirely, as Councillor King has already highlighted. If someone wants to go and get alcohol, it doesn't matter really whether they drive through a drive-through or they go to a shop and park and get their alcohol, because the car's still going to get that alcohol. So I can't agree with that argument because I don't believe it's true. The concept of a retail centre or one integrated retail centre would be fantastic. And ultimately, with all of these components coming together, we will have a retail centre. It will be a centre along a strip. I believe that this is a really good opportunity to progress that area, to bring to fruition a coordinated and connected retail centre. And there are many areas of Albury, and one is where something similar has happened. And I remember when I was at high school, what we now call the Coles or the Kmart shopping plaza started as two individual areas. There was a bottle shop at the front and a car park pretty much in between the bottle shop and the shopping centres. Ultimately, it's become a large development. So this is something that may happen out in this space. We don't know. But to enable a developer to bring forward a product that is of benefit to the community is something that I think we should be supporting tonight. And I think, as I said before, whilst I understand Councillor Con's concerns, I think neither of those are really justifiable in this instance. And I would encourage all councillors to support this motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to put the motion as a division. All those in favour? Councillor Touchby, Councillor Doxey, Councillor King, Councillor Mack, Councillor Blacken, Councillor Thurling, Councillor Vandervan, and against Councillor Con. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Thanks, Mr. Christie. Okay, we've got 13.2, which is the World War II Memorial Bowl Master Plan, public exhibition results. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Council A receives and notes the comments received through the public exhibition period for the draft World War Memorial Bowl Master Plan, Attachment 1, and B endorses the final version of the World War II Memorial Bowl Master Plan, Attachment 2.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervan.
Happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to open debate on that?
Very little to say. Basically, we've got a precinct heading from Dean Street up to the memorial, and this is a little isolated patch in the middle that at the moment looks pretty neglected and pretty poor. The plan has come up really well, in my opinion, and basically we are simply looking to put this out on public, to take on board the comments we've received. It does highlight the opportunity to have a small community gathering space very close to the centre of our city, and I commend the motion.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to the most relevant member of staff. My memory of having only read it last night, but there's a bit of time in between. My memory is that there's no provision for public conveniences, and it was indicated that it is I think it's called a local park, and therefore local parks, or because it's a local park, it isn't given facilities. At what point would council determine that we should have public conveniences in that space? What are the trigger points to put it into the category where it would need public conveniences. Thank you.
Okay. David.
Thanks very much for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Great question. I guess we need to weigh up the holistic view of each park on its, or each space in its own merits. In this instance, it was considered that there's a conveniences slightly up the hill at the monument and also beneath at the Botanic Gardens. Further to your question around what are the trigger points, typically it becomes when we're looking at a regional play space where we're encouraging longer dwell times, longer play times. In this instance, given it was, it's got the fitness equipment and limited play equipment, it's considered a local park with reduced play times, and given the broader context, as I mentioned previously, with toilets up the top at Monument and down below, it was considered appropriate to not put toilets in this instance. And just one more point further to that. The initial have a say process we had, I think, 53 comments through that process. I think there was only one query around toilets at that stage, and certainly different to other play spaces where we've had significant requests for public toilets. So there was limited public requests for public toilets in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no further questions or debate. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to close debate?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. 13.3 mowing services for council parks, reserves and roadsides, contract number 21/010991. Councillor Vanderman.
Oh my goodness, I just realised how much there is to read. Oh no. I'll start. I lost my voice yesterday at the football. Mr. Mayor, I'll move the recommendation of motion that council accepts the tenders from the respective companies as listed in the following table for separable portions. Contract number 21/01091, provision of mowing services for council parks, reserves and roadsides for a 3-year term commencing 1 July 2021 and ending 30 June 2024 for the lump sum amount of $1,252,623, including GST. And B, do I need to read out the individual details of that table?
I think. Yes. I don't think so. I think we're happy to accept them as being on the screen and on record. They're in the documents. I just would happy that if it did be as well.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Zachdin?
If it might assist, we might just reference item A and then reference the detail in the table, then item B, which is the other critical one.
Yeah.
So I'll continue then. The lump sum amount of $1,252,623, including GST, as shown in the table accompanying item A. And B, the council establishes a council-wide panel for ad hoc casual mowing services using the respective companies and rates as listed in the below table, which is attached to item B.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderman. I have a question from Councillor Cameron. Do you wish me to take it first?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the most appropriate member of staff, are staff in the position to identify what is the hourly rate approximately on average that is being quoted for these services? And what is the appropriate industrial instrument that the work will be performed under? And we'll have the usual guarantee. I know I ask this question regularly about subcontract arrangements, but in this instance, I wonder, can they identify the appropriate industrial instrument that will be applied?
Mr. Costello.
Thanks very much for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. In this instance, we're actually asked for a rate per site is effectively what we asked for. So we aren't able to provide an hourly rate in that instance. Further to your question in regards to, I guess more to the point around paying of award rates, our standard contract procedure is upon submission of monthly invoices, there's to be a company to sign statutory declaration that the rates are paid in accordance with award provisions.
Do they identify what those provisions are?
Thanks very
much. Or do
much.
they simply, if I may finish, please, or do they simply sign a carte blanche declaration that they've done the right thing?
Thanks very much for the question. I have to take the question on notice in regards to whether it cites that which relevant award provisions or whether it is a blanket statement, but certainly happy to come back with the nature of that statutory declaration.
Thank you. You'd appreciate that as council as the principal contractor, we potentially could have liabilities there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor King, you have a question also.
Yeah, look, in relation to using subcontractors and subcontractors potentially using subcontractors, I think we had some serious discussions about council's policy and the way that they conduct business in ensuring that subcontractors have been paid. And I'm just wondering whether probably Mr. Ferris will recall me speaking about this a few years ago. And are we regularly getting stat decks from subcontractors that they have paid their staff and their subbies and their super and anything else in relation to that? And are we, if we are, double checking that with some of the subcontractors that are listed on as their on their schedule?
Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. As mentioned by Mr. Costello, certainly every claim under all contracts have that stat deck included within them, so that we're confident that our subcontractors have been paid, or their subcontractors have been paid as part of the project. And yeah, we certainly haven't had any recent accounts where we've had to question any of those initiatives.
Just a follow up. Do you, I think we were going down the path of doing some spot checks a few years ago. Does those spot checks continue?
Through Mr. Mayor, I can certainly take that on notice and see if there's some spot checks happening. But as I say, we certainly haven't had any feedback where we'd have any reason to believe that head contractors aren't paying their subcontractors of recent times.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Vanderman, do you wish to open debate on this item?
I would, Mr. Mayor, very much like to open debate, but I do have a few questions of my own, if I could be permitted.
Yeah.
Through you to the most relevant member of staff. There was a couple of questions that I had. One is that the contract for the previous period was 876 and the new period is 1.25 million. But there was that addition of 13 new sites, CPI inflation in comparison with internal and external market rates. I would like to have some detail around what council would have estimated in terms of those 13 new sites being added to the original contract of 876,000. And then the other issue is the ad hoc schedule of rates, which we look to adopt. That all of the ones in the first three columns seem to be relatively consistent about that 10 to 20 cents per square metre, but the UDL group are quoting 60 cents to 40 cents per square metre for different things, and wonder whether that is a justifiable amount in terms of the difference between that and the other three proposed schedule of rates.
Mr. Costello.
Thanks very much for the question, through you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the second question, UDL Group Proprietary Limited were the only vendor that were electing to use subcontractors. So the other operators were using their own staff. So whilst I can't. I guess my point is there that they're having to pay subcontractors in that instance, and so that could be one of the reasons for the additional prices. And they're also they're not a locally based company as well, so they might have additional overheads as far as that goes. With regards to the first question around the extent of the 13 sites, I would certainly need to take that on notice to give you the full and accurate figures in terms of the exact areas and the quantity of square meterage. I don't have that information on hand, so I'll certainly take that one on notice.
Yeah, I just wanted to get through you, Mr. Mayor, just to follow up. I just wanted to get an idea. Normally we get an indication of what the council budget is for these particular contracts. In this particular instance, there was a budget, or there was some detail around the last two contracts, but obviously with the increase in number of sites, it would have been good to have that information available to me. But a follow up on my second question, which Mr. Costello answered first, I still really don't have an answer as to why we're recommending the UDL group to do this particular work. Did anyone else quote for the work that they've been granted or look to be granted, which is the Albury City site, I think? just the Albury site? And do they consider that to be value for money in terms of the other contractors, and that they're 3 to 4 times and sometimes 5 times the price per square metre as those other contractors?
Mr. Costello.
Thanks very much for the question, through you, Mr. Mayor. The ad hoc and casual mowing services, it's just about providing us with the ability to be able to call on additional resources in the event of a heavy growing season. And that in that instance, we're just seeking to have some potentially readily available contractors on hand that we could call on to meet that excess demand. We would work through those contractors, probably in a rate of lowest to highest price if we needed those ad hoc services. It's simply providing us with, I suppose, the flexibility of in the event if it is a heavy growing season and all contractors are in high demand, we have that ability. But as I mentioned previously, we would probably work through that logically in a lowest to highest cost rate for any ad hoc services that may be required.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Did you wish to open debate?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I have no, I'll reserve right of reply.
There appears to be no further question or debate. Did you want to close debate?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. 13.4, supply of cleaning services, community properties contract number 20/01077. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council accept the tender from HACCP International Property Services Proprietary Limited for the schedule of rates contract number 21/01077 for cleaning services for Albury City community properties for a 3-year period commencing 1st of August 2021. The estimated contract value of $478,764, including GST.
Thank you, councillor Thurley. Seconder, thanks. Councillor Vanderman.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Thurley. Just open debate on that item.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to let it go as it is.
There are no further question or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. 13.5, closure of unused part of road reserve at Boundary Road for maker space and historic pump house. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as motion that council approves the closure of the public road reserve identified as Lot 8 in DP 1068693 and its consequent vesting as Crown land, and B, endorses any documents required to achieve the above.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, do you wish to open debate on that item?
Happy to reserve my right of reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Over speaker against. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to labour the point on this, simply to say that I'm unenthusiastic about the whole makerspace project, and I'm on the record as saying that earlier in other times, so I won't go on with it, but I won't be supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, you wish to speak for this? Your buttons pressed? No? No, there's no speakers for. Speaker against. Councillor King.
Yeah, I echo the words of Councillor Cameron. I think this makerspace is a waste of money, and I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Yes, I will speak.
Thank you. Speaking for.
Yes. Look, we have a great opportunity in this city to cater for a wide range of activities and things that go on and attract people to the city. I've had numerous debates, both publicly and social media, about what things we do support and what things we don't. And usually it's, why have we got mama? It loses money. My response is, what about the Botanic Gardens, the Lauren Jackson Stadium and all our footy fields? They all lose money. We need to cater for all the elements of our community, and this is another one where we cater for the creative artists in the community, and I totally support it.
Thank you. There appears no further speakers for or against. I just sort of would like to say that I speak for this motion. I think we made it quite clear the previous report about this particular project. We need to have a little bit, as Councillor Thurley indicated, we need to have a bit of balance when it comes to what we support and how we support it. And we're not supporting our creative arts community, then we are not being reasonable or broad in our definition of our groups in our community who pursue their community interests and certainly pursue their dreams and objectives. So this particular project has been dogged by this particular issue with Crown Land crossing the precinct, and this is a way of seeking to unravel that and certainly make the site usable and enable the project to continue. Councillor Glacken, did you wish to close debate?
Yes, thank you very much. This is an opportunity for us as council to ensure the ongoing viability of what is really a significantly historic building, as well as support the groups who will use this facility, as already raised by a couple of councillors in this discussion tonight, and discussed and debated at length previously when we dealt with the actual building itself. This motion tonight is simply to tidy that up, and I acknowledge the consistency of Councillor Cameron and Councillor King in that they didn't support the original proposal to restore that historic building, and therefore they were not supporting the homing on the location of a component of our community, the creative space, or the creative component of our community within that space. It is simply tonight tidying that up by ensuring that the public road reserve be altered, and so that the works can progress and be finalised. It's important that we are able to do so in a timely way for a number of reasons, notwithstanding the fact that it's important to get the works done on the building in a timely fashion, but it's also an opportunity for us to ensure that the creative components of our community, or some of the creative components of our community, are more readily housed in a facility that is suited to their needs. And it will be quite an idyllic situation and location, and the building will lend itself to that, what will be its new use. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM 13.6, Investment Policy and Procedures Review. Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you, to move the recommendation as a motion that council receives and notes the annual review of Albury City's investment policy and procedure and adopts the draft revised investment policy and procedure as presented to council, and places these documents on the public policy and procedure register.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, do you wish to speak to this?
Simply to note that this policy, well, a couple of things. One, the policy is not changing greatly. There's a couple of tidying up aspects in it, and also to highlight the fact that it was discussed at the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. No further question or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. 13.7, the draft IVA collection policy. Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be moving an amended motion. I think Terence has it.
Yep, and that is
I move that council receives and notes the draft IVA collection policy and defers further consideration of it until after advice on the draft policy has been received from Heritage New South Wales.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I'd like to second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you. Yes, I will. Look, this is a relatively straightforward matter. There's nothing wrong with council having an IVA collection policy, but this policy hasn't been drawn up with all of the oversight that it needs prior to it going out to public exhibition. The overarching body is Heritage New South Wales, or the Heritage Council of New South Wales. They haven't yet given their thoughts on this policy, and so I don't much see the point of putting it out to public comment if we haven't had that advice, which could significantly change the policy. So just a simple matter of deferring this matter until we we've received the advice from Heritage New South Wales.
Thank you. We have another speaker forward. I have a question, Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to the most relevant member of staff. The report that is outstanding from Heritage New South Wales, with reference to that, my understanding is that Albury City Council has been given some, and I can't remember the wording, but a specific status that we are able to manage the collection within our own guidelines or policies. So is it certain that Heritage New South Wales will be making a submission, or are they expecting that they don't need to make a submission because we already have the ability within which to be able to deal with this? If I could just get some clarification on that. It could be that we've got an expected date of return a report from them, but is it simply that they are not going to send us a report because they don't need to?
Ms. Code.
That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Very good question. And through you, Mr. Mayor. So the IVA collection was added to the New South Wales State Heritage Register in 2017, and its management was placed under the high authority of the Heritage Act. Now, under this, the collection is legally protected and any major changes need to be done through the State Heritage Association, major changes. In Albury City managing the collection, we have been given the right to do so under our policies and procedures, and the draft IVA policy is a subset of these policies and procedures. We can manage the collection in order for its upkeep, to include new exhibitions, or to acquire new objects. Now, the IVA collection policy facilitates the decision-making for regarding the acquisition of objects, so it falls under the remit of what Albury City can make decisions on with regard to the collection. Albury City staff have been in contact with the State Heritage Authority. We have sought their feedback. We will continue to seek their feedback, and we have given them a copy of the draft. But according to the definitions, this would not be a major change because we are operating within the remit within which we've been given to manage the collection and to manage all of our collections.
Can I have a clarifying follow-up then? So in essence, the motion we have on the board from Councillors Stutchbury and Cameron is that we wait until we receive a report from Heritage New South Wales. Is it therefore likely that we will not be receiving that report, that we will be waiting indefinitely for that report?
Ms. Cray.
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. We have made contact with them. They're aware of the changes we're proposing. We're awaiting their feedback. It is not a major change according to the definition. It would be, we will seek to get their feedback and we will continue to want to get their feedback.
So we will receive a report.
We will receive feedback.
Okay.
We will press for feedback. We will press for advice to confirm that the changes we have done are in accordance with the overall remit which we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley speaking for.
Yeah, just and thank you for the clarifying email you sent earlier today. It's just that there are some changes in the policy, and I would simply like to see what Heritage New South Wales says, because if they said, oh no, we don't like that, and yet we're sending a policy out for public exhibition, that would be, and for the purpose of, I think if we rang the Heritage mob tomorrow and said, we need a report by the end of the week because we want to put it out on public display, we're simply ticking all the boxes and making sure that we don't put a policy out that then they come back and say, oh, we don't like that. So I'm not, I think the report we got was good. Clarification later this afternoon was terrific, but I still would like to go through this process, this one extra step.
Thank you. No speakers again. Speaking for, Councillor Con.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, it sounds like it's very unlikely that this report is going to result in significant changes to the policy, but it's also not my impression that this is a particularly urgent policy. And if it has to wait a fortnight or a month to go through with that feedback before public consultation, that doesn't seem like an issue to me.
Okay. Councillor Stuttery, there are no further speakers for or against. Did you wish to close debate?
No, thank you.
Okay, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Oh, look, Brad put his hand up there.
Yes.
Okay. I must say, I didn't know he was there until I looked across the Brad sitting in Hank's seat. Okay, 13.8, the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal 2021 Annual Report and Determination. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation, which is the council receives and notes the report on council and mayoral fees for 2021-22. B, fixes the annual fee payable to each councillor at 24,810 for the 21-22 financial year pursuant to section 248 of the Local Government Act 1993 brackets New South Wales close brackets, and in accordance with the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal 2021 Annual Report and Determination semicolon and C, fixes the annual fee payable to the mayor in addition to the fee payable under section 248 at $61,280 for the 2021-22 financial year pursuant to section 249 the Local Government Act 1993 open brackets in New South Wales close brackets, and in accordance with the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal's 2021 Annual Report and Determination.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think there's we go through this every year because the Act requires us to go through this every year. It would be better if councillor and mayoral payments were set it wholly by an external authority, as are parliamentary entitlements, with no input from or reference to us. But the Act requires us to do this. In the past, in some forums and in this chamber, I've seen people grandstanding by refusing to vote on this subject, but then hypocritically, in my view, going on to accept the payment. Nevertheless, each person must follow their own conscience, and each person, I believe, should be guided by the actions required by us and from us by the legislation, whether we like it or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. There appears to be no further questions or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Okay, we're up to 13.9, which is the revised Albury City Information Guide 2021. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as a motion that council adopts the revised Albury City Information Guide 2021 as presented.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you.
Appears to be no further question or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. And I will leave for 13.10. Over to you.
Thanks for your patience. Confirming Councillor Mack has left the chamber. Councillor Vanderman to move the motion.
Yeah, I move the recommendation as a motion. The council endorses the 2021-24 partner council's funding agreement between Albury City and the Murray Regional Tourism for the period 1 July 2021 to 30 June 2024.
Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Vanderman, would you like to speak to that motion?
Yes, just briefly. I think over the last few years, this organisation has served us extremely well. We have some really top-class representation on that tourism board in the shape of Ms. Squire, and I'm sure that the benefit we get out of this is very, very commensurate with our input into this funding agreement. Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor.
I've got a speaker against, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. My view is otherwise, with the greatest respect to the people who represent us in this organisation and the organisation itself, and they are hardworking and capable. I am of the view and have been of the view for some time that this doesn't represent value for money for the city, and we should terminate our relationship with this organisation. I acknowledge the validity of views to the contrary. However, I think it's time now in Albury's, we're at a point in Albury's history after a very disciplined and well executed financial history in the last 8 years, where we have to face up to the fact that through no fault of our own, perhaps, but through depreciation requirements and through the effect of COVID, we are no longer in the black, as it were. Hopefully that will be a temporary situation, but it's time we sobered up and started to assess critically each of our fiscal commitments. This has been a council, although I have voted against it in the past, that has launched into some pretty high profile and expensive projects, to wit Lavington and Mama. And there's talk now there has been talk in the community and amongst potential candidates that we should commit again and zombie-like resurrect the spectre of an indoor aquatic centre. I think finances are not what they once were, and it's time we paused and critically examined each of our fiscal commitments. And this is one that I personally have come to the conclusion that we should cease. However, I respect views to the contrary, and I expect to hear views to the contrary.
Thanks, Councillor Cameron. I've got another speaker for Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Yes, through you to speak for and in support of this motion from Councillor Van der Ven and Councillor Thurley tonight, which is indeed supporting the staff recommendation. I concur entirely with us supporting this, because for around $50,000 a year, we get an absolutely really good opportunity for our community and our regional community as well. For us to be able to bring that marketing, that reach, and that advertising to fruition would cost more, definitely more than the 50,000. We're talking probably $500,000 per year to be able to get that reach. As a group, as an organisation, as a collective, we get much better value for money, and we're able to partner with the shires and councils within this river region to ensure that when people come on their holiday, if they go to one of the local government areas, they are more likely to hop into another local government area, because we're marketing and targeting to the same group of people, and they work consistently to ensure that they can bring people for a longer period of time. So I think we should be supporting this. I think it's great value for money, and we would not be able to afford this if we did go it alone. The other really important aspect is that when people come to our community, they bring money in. It's great to have money going around, circling around within our own business community, but it is much more important that we consider the money flowing into our community. And this is one of those areas where this ensures that money does come into our community. And the figure that's quoted, which I can't remember off the top of my head, the figure that is quoted within this report is extremely high, and therefore the value that we're paying into that to get the outcome that we get is, I believe, a significantly smaller value than we would have to pay otherwise. So I support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Glacken. I have no indication of any more speakers against, so we'll have another speaker for Councillor King.
Through Madam Deputy Mayor, look, there's a time for not spending and there's a time for spending. I think this is a time for spending. Tourism is an integral part of Albury, and I think we should actually be giving more money to our tourist sector of the Albury City Council. It, as Councillor Glacken said, brings in a lot of money into the city of Albury. It's a pretty easy initiative. People come in, hopefully in the next couple of years, they'll have somewhere to stay on the river. I'm sorry, grandstanding a bit there. But look, you know, we've got a lot of things to show off. And I think if we reduce that budget, well, then I think we're going backwards. So I'm supporting this 100%.
Thanks, Councillor King. I've got no indication of any more speakers for or against. Councillor Vanderven, would you like to close the debate? Thanks. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That motion's carried. I could let Councillor Mack back in the room, please.
Thank you, Councillor Con. Let the records reflect that I've returned to the chamber. Okay, no officer reports for noting, and we have a delegates report for noting. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the council receives and notes the report.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderven.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to that one at all?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It was a conference after our fully virtual conference, which was virtually held in Shepparton. This year, we managed to hold a conference in Wentworth, which was well attended with over 130 delegates in attendance and I think about 30 online at various times. We were lucky. We had a study tour of Menindee Lakes and the Darling River was flowing for the first time in 3 years. So we saw quite a lot of activity. Just a couple of things that I'll note from the conference. Minister Pavey mentioned that New South Wales was leading the pack in a number of regards with respect to water issues. And I would have to say that looking at the questions that arose, I don't think there was a whole lot of belief in that statement. And this came up again when I attended the Basin Community Committee meeting in Griffith last week. So I think there are still a number of outstanding issues. I did note that the Renmark Irrigation Trust has joined a body called the Alliance for Water Stewardship and received accreditation. And the Renmark Paringa Council have also joined. And I'm suggesting that our staff should examine what that is and what benefit it might bring to the city. Water stewardship is clearly an important issue and it's going to become even more important. I guess the other thing that I'd like to do is to announce that the next conference will be held here in Albury and to commend Sue Harper and Rachel Orr for the bid they put together. We will be having some discussions over the next few weeks, but the conference is likely to be sometime in August, September 2022. And if we can get 130 to Renmark, I reckon we can get 200 to Wentworth. I reckon we can get 200 here to Albury. So I think it'll be a great event for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. There are no notices of urgent business. Confidential item. Councillor Vanderven.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that we go into confidential item exclusive of press or public grounds that two matters and information are the following. A, personnel matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors, Local Government Act 1993, number 30, section 10A 2A.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there anyone in the chamber that wishes to state why this matter should not be held in confidential? Please state your case. There appears to be none. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour?